Hey McNuggets, here we are, video 2, KRX H2 motor swap build. If you see right here, we have a pallet with no H2 motor on it. Let's see how far we actually got along. Let's see what we're doing on this project. Alright, so you can see the H2 motor is sitting inside the KRX chassis. Now, this job ended up turning out to be much harder than I expected it to. I thought, size for size, the motors should kind of relatively drop into place. That's not the case at all. So we're going to have to go along and make a lot of custom parts to make this work. The biggest one being the oil pan. The street bike engine has a deep sump, and exactly where the sump goes down in the oil pan is exactly where the drive shaft is. So I have to make an entire oil pan and move the sump to the other side so it will clear the drive shaft. That's the biggest problem. After that, now the motor mounts have to be really made differently here. However, I'm going to make custom motor mounts. It's going to fit and adjust properly. There's a lot involved with all of this. You can't just make some motor mounts and bolt this thing in. It's going to have a chain. So the chain drive means the motor has to be able to move forward and back to adjust the chain. So all of this has to be calculated into the motor mounts while it's being made, in the thought process, before anything's officially started to be made. And we're going to be doing that and showing you that in this video. After I pulled the KRX motor out of here, I had to figure out a plan here to start with this machine to make this thing smoothly transition into an H2 motor. So let me show you where I started with this KRX. So after I pulled the motor out, I pulled the interior out. So this thing is stripped. So we are going to make this into a single seater. So put the seat in the middle and give you some ideas here. Here's the drive shaft through floor. We're going to move the whole steering column, the power steering, everything to the center of this machine. And then this way, I left the shifter cable in and the brakes in. I'm going to move all of that stuff to one side. Pulled out the gas tank. We have a custom aluminum fuel cell that we're going to be using. And then I came in here and I cut out the back of the firewall in between the frame. So this is the frame all the way up. So I can make an aluminum bracket plate that goes on here and we can just bolt it back in. So it had the original airbox mount hole, and then we had a snorkel hole. So there's a good section of this that was open already once we removed everything from the KRX. So it was easier just to cut all the way around. I can make an aluminum plate and I can actually bolt it into the frame all the way around this machine. And now I have an access panel allowing me to get into this H2 motor. I'm going to have to custom build exhaust from the front and everything. So now you see how much room I have interior wise. And the motor is just hanging there. It's pretty sturdy really. But let me show you from the bottom. You see right through. You see the drive shaft right here along this line. You can see the bottom of the oil pump, which I actually moved to get these clearances. Very simple. The oil pan on the street bike has this very deep sump in it. And the sump is directly on this side, which directly hits the drive shaft, moving the motor side to side and up and down. So it hits the drive shaft from the side-to-side location, and it's making the motor sit up high. So I am going to make an entire oil pan where the sump is over here and clears the drive shaft. So at that height, when I do that, this is where the motor will sit. See, we already started motor mounts here. We'll show you a video of us cutting those out. So that's going to be the biggest deal. Next, I came in here and I changed out all the rubber mounts for these poly mounts from class 1. You can see that. And I powder coated the motor mount and dropped it back in. But the only problem with that is where this motor had to sit, it ended up being in the way. So I can't use that, and I have to build an entire front mount, which I have a tube here. I'm going to be building the front mount. But we're going to show you how to build the front mount and what we're going to do, what that's going to take. And when I tell you it took a long time to strip the interior of this machine, let's take a quick little look why. So let's take a look at a little bit of some of this stuff, and we can show you guys, maybe have you never seen this stuff out, you can see what it looks like. So there's your 2 floor pans where your driver and your passenger will put your feet. This is the complete gas tank. So that's the size of the gas tank, which is pretty good sized. Here is the actual fuel line itself. And then this is the vent work with the little flip over valve right there. This is the plate that goes underneath, on top of the gas tank, underneath your seats. Your seats actually bolt on there to that framework. That is your complete wiring harness, your computer, and that's the aftermarket DynoJet. This long 4.5 foot beam goes down the center of your machine, and your shifter actually bolts onto it. These are your coolant lines. They go from the front of the machine to the back of the machine. I didn't know how far I was going to get into this machine, stripping it down, so I ended up cutting them and sliding them out because I wasn't going to use them. It's going to be radiator mounted. And later on, I ended up stripping it down, so I didn't really need to do that. One thing you guys might not know that I didn't know is from the bottom, there is a coolant plug right here. That focuses in. So from the bottom of the machine, you can actually drain your coolant from this line right in about the center of the machine. I didn't know that. So that's something you learn. Here's my 2 harnesses and fire extinguisher, so 6-point Kawasaki harnesses. There's the bed. So this is the complete dash. Comes out in 3 pieces. This is the driver's side where your steering column would go through that hole. The center with the radio's for sale. And then the passenger side. And here is your upper center console. And then the inside, your center console. Some of the plastic pieces that go in the back. This is your little heat guard. That goes right in front of your cylinder head onto the back firewall of your machine. Here is your gauge cluster and the backing to it. This is your electronic throttle pedal. That's the cover for it. You can see what that looks like all complete. It's the inside of a fuse box right there. This was the snorkel kit that was on it with the snorkel plate I make. So I make and sell these snorkel plates on our website. Here is the passenger handle, and this is what bolts to that square tube frame to mount it. It's a bunch of covers for the air box and fuse box and so on. Obviously the seats. That is the framework for the inner structure of the bed. This is both your air boxes, the one that goes to your throttle bodies right here, and your actually air filter setup right there. And then I have a bunch that's not really in this picture I have in the other room, but there's the front motor mount in the center here. It goes from the engine to the transmission. There's your secondary clutch. That's a tiger tail. There's your motor mount, your front motor mount. 12-inch speaker for the factory Kawasaki set up there. It's a complete radiator and the shrouding for it. And this right here is the upper radiator mount. And then this is a complete Inferno heating system. These rubber mats are the Kawasaki rubber mat door install setup. This is the wiring for the winch. So that's all your wiring just for your winch. Some aftermarket speakers and so on. So by looking around, you could see how much had to come out of this machine to get it stripped down to where it is. Now we're cutting some of our custom KRX motor mounts for the H2 swap. To show you the difference here between the factory black rubber and the new green poly mount, let's put it on the end here, the smaller end, and I'm going to squeeze both of them with the same amount of strength. So you see that one is as far as I can squeeze it, and this one just crushes. You can see that much of a difference in strength. This is the bigger end with the lip, same thing. I can't really move much this one, and this one just crushes. And this one you pretty much can't alter it. So that's going to show you how much your transmission's going to move and so on, and shows you how much stronger these mounts are than the factory rubbers. And again, these are brand new, only 209 miles on them. They are in great shape. Another thing is it has a lot more of a platform where it touches the round surface. This one is full, and this one allows obviously much more of an area to crush down. So that's the difference between what the motor mounts are, in case some of you guys are wondering what the difference in these transmission and motor mounts will do. Okay guys, this is the factory front motor mount. So what you have is your engine will bolt up to this area here, and then you will slide your motor mounts onto the end that bolt to your frame. And that's where these rubber bushings will come into play. So those will slide on, and you'll bolt this on. So this is completely too high, and this whole entire raised section here is going to be in the way. So I'm going to completely build this piece with what we have here. Our mount, we are going to slide our chromoly tube into our mount, and we are going to use two of these angles that I designed up. I'll space them out, weld them on, and then I'll take a filler plate and wrap the plate on the inside. We're going to do that on both sides. And then we will take another piece of chromoly and slide it through. And it will go from one side of the machine to the other. So these original motor mounts will bolt on in the original location. And this will move the motor mount forward and in. It'll allow me to get the exact height I want. And when I do that, I will come across with these mounts, and we will weld the mounts on here straight back to the transmission, and then we can adjust this level, and it'll give us our first platform. Once we have that motor mount built, we are going to take the second motor mount, and we are going to drop them on top. As you can see, all the slots line up, but we could slide it back and forth now to adjust the chain. And then this top mount will have mounts that go up to the engine. So the engine will come down and sit on top of this top plate. This plate will be welded into the frame and onto the poly bushings in the transmission. And when the motor gets dropped on top, we could slide it back and forth, And you see I made a whole bunch of different holes and adjustments so we can actually get the motor sitting exactly where we want, and then we can put the bolts in here and adjust it forward for changing sizes of sprockets. So I realize this KRX is taking on much more of a build than I thought was going to be a drop together, and I kind of know this. I build enough things, I knew, but this is taking longer. In the process, now I don't have a machine to drive anymore, so I went out and I bought this brand new Turbo R. So this is going to be able to something, we already started making products for it, but this is going to be the machine we can use and drive around now to set up the track out back while we're building our track machine. So now we have the new Turbo R, and while we were doing this entire job, let me show you another thing that I came up with and I designed up. So in the process of stripping down this machine and looking at things, I come across the dead pedal. I always wanted and was curious about how much room is behind a dead pedal. So I came in here and I cut this area out on the passenger side, both the driver and the passenger side, and this is the amount of the dead pedal that you can remove. So it opens up a huge chunk in the floor here, allowing you to move your foot over much more, a few inches. You can see in this area here how much the dead pedal covers. So we came up with this design in the process of dead pedal plates. They simply drop into place and bolt in once you remove that pedal. And in this area here, you can see how much more room that your foot will have. We have them for the driver's side and the passenger side. I'll close up on this so you can see exactly what's going on. So again, we are here on the passenger floor, and you can see this entire area here is where your passenger's foot would be. That's the dead pedal. What you do is you trim it out. Try to let this focus. And then you remove it. Now you can see how much more room you have for your foot just by removing that. And you simply take our new plates and drop our new plates in place. We give you a bolt and a nutsert that goes inside the old drain pan, and then the other side will go up to the factory bolt hole. Now with our pedal in place, look at the dirt mark on the floor. You can see how much more room your foot has while you're driving. Alright, so that ends video 2 of the Kawasaki H2 Motor Swap build. I realize this is taking us a little bit longer to get all this. I mean, I'm filming everything myself, I'm building everything myself, trying to run a business, trying to build a racetrack, finish up the building. I got a lot going on here, guys. We just moved down here from Massachusetts, and we're finishing up the building and so on. So these projects are thrown in the side because I love building things. So I either one of two things. I either destroyed this machine or this machine's going to be really cool. Like I said prior in other posts, this isn't for everybody. Maybe you hate this video. Maybe you can't stand what I'm doing. Maybe you think I wrecked the machine. Well, it's my money. It's my machine. And for the guys that keep posting on there saying, hey, I want to do a ZX14 swap. I want to do that. So there are people out there that have this idea. I'm going to show you what's involved with it. In our next video, part 3, we're going to be building a sumped oil pan so we can clear that drive shaft. We'll be welding up those motor mounts. We'll be getting that motor sitting in place. And we're going to start maybe looking at the wire and a couple ideas on how the shifter and maybe the clutch is going to work and a few things like that. We'll take it one step at a time, like anything else. So guys, please, if you could, like and share the video. We're trying to grow this channel. You know, when we have a racetrack out there, you're going to be able to see the machine on the track and so on. We appreciate you guys. And if any of you guys are interested in it, just comment below. Tell us, hey, yeah, I don't like what so far. Hey, try this. Hey, try that. Hey, I had a friend who did this. Let me know. Guys, ladies, remember one thing. McNasty rules.